Introducing to you the launch of PHP in a whole new way. We're going to get a behind the scenes look at how this scripting language works. And of course, we'll also be sharing some of our favorite hacks that will make coding a breeze. Let's begin. Have you ever wondered how your PHP application and web browser talk to each other? It's a lot more complicated than you might think. The truth is, most developers have a good grasp of what happens when they create a PHP application, but they're much less aware of the ways it transforms into a website. It can affect how you design your PHP application, but it's also important if you're looking to improve its performance. For example, it's hard to understand PHP application caching if you don't understand how a PHP application works. This is something to keep in mind. Hence, before digging into the working steps of PHP, let's focus on the main components. MVC architecture. In the working process of PHP, you have to know that PHP mainly works on MVC architecture. It means Model View Controller. It can help you manage your code and separate the model, view, and controller files. Frameworks. PHP boasts an enormous number of frameworks built to help developers with everything from building simple pages to organizing complex projects. Here are the most popular ones: Aura, Yi, Symfony, Laravel, and Zend. Web server. PHP mainly works on server software and uses the Apache server. Database. PHP can be used with any database, but it is mainly used with MySQL. PHP parser. Parser helps in parsing the PHP instructions to HTML code and then sends it to a web browser to display the content. Autosuggest. The components are ready to use to implement the search form with the autosuggest feature using PHP and database MySQL. Filters. In PHP, filters are used to validate the data using the filter function. This filter function helps in checking the invalid input that has been submitted to avoid the security problem and break of web pages. System functions. In PHP, the system functions are performed to open the file. It also helps in creating, reading, and writing to the file as well. Handle forms. The forms in PHP are able to get the data from files, save the data, send the email, and return data to a user. Let's understand the working process of PHP through the following steps. Step 1. The client makes a request for a specific web page on a website. Step 2. The server checks that a page exists and then tells the PHP interpreter to return that page. Step 3. Step 3. The interpreter then checks the database for the requested page and returns it to the client, who can view it in their browser. Step 4. An interpreter receives a request for data output in PHP format, which it converts to an HTML file, since a browser does not understand that PHP files. Step 5. The web server receives the HTML file from the interpreter and sends it back to your browser. Step 6. The browser renders the HTML from the server and displays it to the user. How cool was that? Amazing, right? Now that we know a bit more about PHP, let's get into writing our first Hello World program. Although PHP is a very easy to learn language, we still need to cover some basics before we can write Hello World. With that in mind, let's take a look at the prerequisites for PHP development. First of all, you must have PHP installed on your local machine. You can get that done by installing XAMPP. XAMPP is an easy to install Apache distribution that contains PHP, MySQL, and Apache web server. It can run on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. If you're looking for a PHP development environment, it's time to try XAMPP. XAMPP. Get the installation details at https www.apachefriends.org/index.html and download the suitable version from your platform. As PHP code is not compiled, you can even use a simple editor like Notepad++ to create PHP code files. The choice is all yours. Once you've downloaded XApp, you'll need to set up a server. To do that, go to the directory where you installed XAMPP, usually found at C. XAMPP. Then go to the folder called htdocs and create a folder inside it and name it Hello World. Now that you have our folder set up, open your text editor and create a PHP file in that folder called index.php. You'll write the hello world code example coming up next in this file. Following is your first PHP program that will do nothing much but will display hello world on the screen. In the code above, PHP is the PHP opening tag. This tag can be placed anywhere in a document to signify that the code that comes after is PHP. In the end, resembles PHP's closing tag that marks at the end of the document's PHP code section. Any code past this tag will not be treated as PHP and may result in errors. Therefore, all PHP code falls within a PHP code block as shown below. In the previous code, the below line does all the job. Echo hello world. It calls the built-in echo function which tells the program to print anything that follows within the quotations, in this case hello world. The echo command can also take something called variables to print, which we'll learn more about later. Finally, each statement or line in PHP must be concluded with a semicolon to mark where the statement ends. Well, that was our very first PHP program. That said, how do we check if it's working properly? How does it generate the output? Let's find out. Open your XAMPP control panel and run Apache and MySQL by clicking the Start button on their respective rows. Apache will act as our web server to host a local site, while MySQL will act as our database to store site information. Now open your web browser and type localhost into the address bar. This will bring up a challenge select menu. Simply select your desired language and you'll be redirected. If a SAMP XAMPP menu comes up, your local server is running correctly. To see our PHP Hello World application, type localhost / hello world. You should see a mostly white page within the words hello world written in the top left corner. Congratulations, you've just completed your first PHP program. While our file features just PHP code, files with the .php extension can also include HTML code .if. XML code. If we want to include this PHP code into an HTML document, below is how it can be done. Seems quite familiar, right? Once you execute the script, you will see the output as shown above. Do you notice any changes in the output? Yes, hello world is written as a heading because in the HTML code, we specify that hello world should be printed as a heading, as put it inside the heading tag h1. This brings us to the end of the great chapter. We just learned how PHP works behind the scenes and executed our legendary first program. Feels good, right? Despite the mockery and debate on whether it's still valuable, PHP developers keep earning good livings from working with the language. So PHP doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. Now go code some PHP.